Some souls were never meant to live inside society. They were engineered to walk outside it. You have felt this your entire life, a distinct, vibrating dissonance between your internal reality and the external world. You are told it is a disorder. You are told it is a failure to adapt. But what if it is neither? We are looking at a forgotten file in the archives of human psychology. We are looking at a specific lineage of human beings whose neural and spiritual architecture does not allow them to integrate into the collective hallucination we call culture. Manly P. Hall, in his suppressed analysis of this phenomenon, identified these individuals not as outcasts, but as a distinct category of existence. He called them the lonely ones. According to Hall, the life we see is not what it seems. He writes that, hidden from our eyes by the cloak of materiality is a wonderful world which only the eyes of the dreamer can see. But this vision comes at a cost. The stony walls of conventionalized thought are designed to shut out this view. If you see through the walls, you cannot live within them. Hall states explicitly, every individual who comes into the world is a lonely one, a stranger in a strange land. But for most, this strangeness is anesthetized by social conditioning. For you, the anesthesia didn't work. Tonight, we are going to dissect why. We are going to reframe your isolation not as a pathology, but as a missing psychological category, forgotten by modern science. We are going to prove that your suffering is engineered, your destiny is non-random, and the world's attempt to erase you is simply a systemic immune response to a foreign, superior element. Let's establish the thesis. Ancient texts and mystical orders have long acknowledged a different class of human. This is not an elite in the socio-economic sense. It is an anomaly in the system. Hall describes a stonily conventionalized world that blocks the view of life's noble path. The conventionalized thought and commercialized ideas act as a perceptual filter. Most human brains accept this filter as reality. The lonely one's brain does not. This is a suppressed psycho-spiritual archetype. We are talking about individuals who possess a higher sensitivity that renders them incompatible with the sordidness of human construction. Hall notes that civilization dissolves into itself the wild places of the earth. It swallows natural grandeur. The lonely one is the human equivalent of that wild place, a psychological territory that civilization tries to dissolve, but fails. If you are watching this, you likely suspect that your operating system is fundamentally different. Hall confirms this. He posits that while the masses are blind to the divine plan, there are those who see the greatness of it. This isn't poetry, it is a description of a perceptual divergence. You are seeing data streams that others filter out. Where does this lineage come from? Hall writes that we live in a world of shadows. He states that these phantoms are not selves. Yet most humans mistake them for the real self. This is the default human operating system, total identification with the simulation. The average person creates an avatar based on social feedback and believes that avatar is them. The lonely one undergoes a neurological break from this default setting. Hall explains that few can define the object they seek. If they only realized one thing, the quest would be ended. Each searches for himself. The origin of your isolation is this specific search. While others search for external validation, the phantoms, you are neurologically hardwired to search for the real self. This difference is structural. Hall argues that the intellect and emotion have struggled for dominion over the soul, and man has allowed his servants to become his masters. The lonely one is the individual in whom this coup d'etat has failed. You have not allowed the servant, the social intellect, to master the soul. This refusal to submit to the hierarchy of the intellect creates friction. It creates the stranger in a strange land dynamic. You are seeking a signal in a world of noise. Hall writes that religion is not merely intellectual. It must be enshrined within the heart. This implies a different cognitive processing center. You are not processing reality through the linear, commercialized logic of the conventional world. You are processing it through a direct, mystic apprehension. This is not a choice. It is a biological imperative of your lineage. Let's profile the first archetype of this lineage. Hall calls him the Old Man of the Mountain. This is not just a story about a guy in the woods. It is a case study of a human who has completely disconnected from the social simulation to activate a new form of intelligence. In the text, this hermit lives in a region where man has not intruded. Civilization is described as a dread power that destroys life. The hermit has retreated to the fastnesses of these hills. Why? To reboot his perception. A young hunter encounters this hermit. The hunter represents the standard human operating system. Aggressive, ownership-oriented, disconnected. He aims his bow at a stag. The hermit intervenes. And here is the crucial data point. The hermit speaks to the stag. The hunter asks, "How did you talk to him?" The hermit replies, "I spoke in the words of the forest and the trees." That is his language. This is not magic. This is a shift in sensory bandwidth. Hall writes that the hermit has learned to talk with the tongue of beast and bird. He hears the voice of fear in the crackling of twigs. He has resensitized his neurobiology to the subtle data streams of the environment, streams that civilization dulls. The hermit teaches a radical anti-ego doctrine. When the hunter asks if the stag belongs to him, the hermit says, "Proper use is the sole warrant for ownership." This is a rejection of the foundational logic of the commercialized world. The archetype of the hermit proves a psychological principle. When a human disconnects fully from the social web, they do not go insane, they go super sane. They access a language of reality that predates human speech. The hermit's cowl of grey cloth and his wooden staff are symbols of his insulation from the noise. He has become a node of pure reception. The lonely one here is simply a human who has stopped filtering reality through the lens of the predator and started seeing it through the lens of the interconnected. But how does one become the hermit? How does one exit the simulation? The mechanism is brutal. It is engineered trauma. Hall provides the clinical diagnosis on page 7. Sorrow, suffering, and loneliness are the great builders of character. But then he delivers the fatal line. Man never becomes truly great until his heart is broken. That is the supreme test. Why is a broken heart the prerequisite for greatness? Reframe this structurally. The default mode network of the brain is reinforced by comfort, by social validation, by the shadows Hall speaks of. To break that network, you need a shock, you need a fracture. Hall writes, "Those who are deepened and broadened by their experiences rise triumphant from the ruins of their dreams." Ruins of their dreams. That is the key. The dream is the illusion of the not-self. The system must collapse for the lonely one to wake up. This is a dopamine detox on a metaphysical level. The dopamine ladder of society status, acquisition, ownership must be shattered. When the hunter meets the hermit, the hunter is forced to drop his bow, his tool of dominance. He is stripped of his identity as a predator. This is the pain of the awakening. The lonely one is subjected to high-pressure isolation, not as punishment, but as an initiatory sequence. Hall notes that sorrow and suffering bring the discrimination needed to see what is really worthwhile.